going on, Ramley? Welcome to the Rams Skinny with myself, Ryan Dyrud, and hosted by the man, Skinny T, Ryan Anderson. It's Niners week. Huge game as both teams come in 1-0 into SoFi Stadium, the Rams house. I don't care what anyone else out there says. It is the Rams house, and we'll maybe talk about that a little bit. But Skinny T, what's up, brother? How we doing? Happy, couple days before the game.
Man, we are in full swing in this NFL season. Two NFC matchups to back for the Rams. I kind of like that the NFL has picked some divisional games to kick everything off with. It really, the heat is set. It's we're into it. We're going. Every game obviously matters in the NFL, but it seems like it's even more so now with Giants and Dallas and just all the drama that's been going on in this league already. We're in the thick of it, man. Feels good.
100%. Every game does matter. Only a 17-game season, but division games always mean a little bit more because obviously you win your division, you're in the dance. So it doesn't matter what your record is if the division's competitive and you win 9 games, you're at the top, you're in the playoffs. So can't state enough how huge that win against Seattle was. So the Rams can go into this game 1-0 because if they drop that game, and if they end up dropping this game, starting the season 0-2 would have been a brutal hole to climb out of. So already it's like a huge weight off their shoulders, and we're going to, we think they can compete in this game. Absolutely. So we're not doom and gloom in that way, but just looking at the big picture, if they were to lose, 0-2 would be tough. Whereas 1-1 is like, hey, we're at a good spot 2 games in the division. So excited to get into my man, if I can speak correctly. Before we do, show is always brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today. Use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV. It's going to get you a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. You put in $50, you get $25 free. You put in $100, you get $50 free. I think it's up to $1,000. So a lot of opportunity for free money there. As it sits right now, I know what it is. You know what the line is right now, Skinny T?
8.5 in favor of the Niners.
So it moved a little bit now. I don't know why, but the Rams are +7 now. So it moved a point and a half. So one single touchdown. So if you feel good about your Rams to either win, throw the money line, or just to at least cover the spread, it's sitting at points +7 at betonline.ag. Tell them the guys at the Rams Skinny sent you. All right. What do you want to dive into first? We already recapped the game live. Great win for the Rams. I think it was, we thought they would be competitive. Both didn't think they could pull off a win just because of some talent discrepancy. And boy, oh boy, did they surprise us in not only winning, but ultimately dominating that second half against Seattle. And I think they built a lot of positive things going into those weeks. Let's start with that. We're not going to do a recap where he did that, but just give me one thing, Skinny, that you are most impressed with, and that can lead into the second thing of how they roll that impressive moment into this now week 2 matchup with the Niners.
What I was most impressed with was the Rams' offensive line and just how much they congealed and how much protection and time they gave Matthew Stafford. So I think that is a huge key for this next game because the Seattle Seahawks pass rush is a different story than the 49ers pass rush. Yeah. We saw the 49ers really get a hold of the Pittsburgh Steelers last week, and they got after that quarterback, 5 sacks, I believe. And this is a whole different animal, even from what the Rams have seen in the past from the 49ers. Of course, you got Bosa and Armstead there. Javon Hargrave has also joined this defensive line, and you've got Drake Jackson, USC Trojan, coming up with 2 sacks last week for the 49ers. So they've got a lot of juice there. So this is going to be the first. This is week 1 for this offensive line. This is the test.
Yep.
Because we were very complimentary of Stafford last week. He had a fantastic game. He really made no mistakes in that last game. So we'll see what is going to happen with a little bit less time to make those throws.
Yeah, I mean, it's as good as the Rams offensive line looked. I mean, they're going up against arguably the best defensive front in all of football. You could argue them, maybe the Eagles, maybe the Cowboys. I'm probably forgetting some, but they're definitely in that 1A, 1B, 1C conversation with all the talent they have and schematically what they do. So going to be a different test. That was going to be mine. The offensive line, I think, showed out because that was the biggest question mark going into this game. So I'll choose a different one, and I'm going to go defensive line. And, the biggest thing, not the biggest thing, but one of the big things, Skinny, we talked about is who's going to provide pressure besides Aaron Donald on this team. You have so much youth. You have so much inexperience. I mean, you're trotting out Michael Hoyt and Byron Young as your two kind of edge guys, bringing the pressure and whatnot. And, again, I think Seattle's done well improving their offensive line. Finally, it's like they waited till Russ left to actually make some moves on the offensive line. I know that Cross got injured in that game and they had some other guys banged up, but 20 pressures from this Rams defensive front, 3 sacks. And I think that's going to be their test too, is if they can get after Brock Purdy to keep this game close. And when you look at the 49ers offensive line, I was on a crossover show last night with a 49ers content creator, and that was his biggest concern is the 49ers right side of the offensive line has shown deficiencies. Obviously it's only 1 week, but that was kind of, they lost Mike McGlinchey in the offseason. And so that right side is maybe where the Rams can exploit them. So looking at this young unit again, obviously Aaron Donald is all world, but outside of him, who else is going to provide pressure and keep Brock Purdy honest and keep him in the pocket and keep him thinking quicker? Because even with how great TJ Watt is and that Pittsburgh Steelers defense, I mean, he had pretty much all day to make decisions. And even when he didn't have all day, he was very quick in his decision-making. So the Rams defensive front needs to make things uncomfortable for him.
Yeah. And, it goes beyond just the passing game as well. We saw at times this defensive line letting up some yardage to Kenneth Walker last week. And again, this is another test. Christian McCaffrey is a better running back than Kenneth Walker is, and he's gonna test this defensive line in a way that they weren't tested last week. So I think. I mean, this has got to be a Aaron Donald kind of statement game. I know we got to think more holistically in a bigger picture when it comes to the defensive line. But when last week when we saw the game start tilting was when Aaron Donald was able to kind of impose his will and move things around on the offensive line for Seattle, and this is the world we're living in for the Rams right now. Is they've got the 3 pillars. Well, we're down to 2 now, and there's more pressure on those guys, and they have to make them pay. Like you were saying, there was. I think that pressure statistics across the board are kind of hard to
misleading.
Numbers were all over the place. I saw in one place that it said that Pittsburgh Steelers had a 55% pressure rate, which is insane. If that's true, and Purdy still put up 30 points on them, this offense is obviously something special. But we saw some flashes from some guys, and I don't think it's going to be any one guy. We saw Van Valkenburg. There's got to be a cool nickname in there, the Falcon or something like that.
Yeah.
Make some plays. Michael Hoyt made some plays. And we saw Byron Young make some plays. And that right side is a liability for the 49ers. So, that's Donald and just, attack that side, see what we can get. And just hope that, Ernest Jones can keep up with Christian McCaffrey all day.
Yeah, per PFF, TJ Watt had 6 total pressures and all 3 of the Steelers sacks in that week 1 matchup. So that's got to be that's what Aaron Donald's going to have to do. And hopefully they can, have a better outcome than 30-7, even with that kind of one-man performance. But then it's going to be who's the other guy providing pressure. Because even if that's an all-world, 6 pressures, 3 sacks is a great game, and they gave up 30 points. So who's going to be giving it from the other side or just eluding that? So here's a question for you. What concerns you more? And we'll keep it with the defense. The Niners receiving core or Christian McCaffrey? And I'll pose it like this because, as great, and let's just look at Seattle one more time. Like, there are no slouch in the receiving room. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, thank you, and Jackson Smith and Jigba are not by any means a bad receiving core. Some would say probably top 5 in the league, and the Rams held them to what, under 80 yards total receiving or something like that. Now, Kenneth Walker is obviously a far cry from what Christian McCaffrey is, and obviously the versatility that McCaffrey has. So now looking at the Niners, is what Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, and Deebo Samuel so much better than what the big three in Seattle are? Or is it going to be Christian McCaffrey's versatility that is more concerning to contain for you?
That's a fantastic question. Um, I mean, Christian McCaffrey's versatility is going to test um, this defensive line in a way it wasn't tested last week. So that's where I'm leaning toward. But then when you look at what Deebo Samuel can do, George Kittle can do in the short yardage, in the at the line of scrimmage to 5 yard catching area, they can make you pay there. And there were 6 missed tackles for the Rams last week. You can't do that against this team. You got to wrap these guys up. You got to hit them in the mouth and be physical. And I know that's a huge point of emphasis for McVay this season. And this is when you find out just how physical your team is going to be. What are your thoughts on the, because some of the pressures last week were coverage pressures. There was a good amount of time where that Rams backfield, the secondary, was really holding up really well. That allowed some of those defenders to get there. So that might be the strongest point for this Rams team is that second, well, not the whole team, but certainly the defense.
Yeah.
That's where they've invested most of their money in this offseason, bringing on Akhello Witherspoon and bringing back John Johnson. So yeah, what are your thoughts on those scary weapons that the 49ers have?
I mean, it's the hardest test I think they'll face all year when you look at their schedule and who they play. And this Niners team is just so loaded. I mean, if this Niners team doesn't win the Super Bowl, something either went categorically wrong, whether it was injuries or Brock Purdy just fell apart or Shanahan did something crazy. Because I mean, they're just so stacked at every level. And I was so impressed by this secondary, as you alluded to, what they were able to do against such a good unit. And part of that, I think, is, Geno Smith just didn't really have a very good game either. So that certainly helps. And, that was from other instances and other factors flying into that. What makes playing the Niners so hard, and specifically Kyle Shanahan, and he does this pretty well categorically across the league, but for some reason so much better against the Rams. It seems like every time they play, whoever the Rams decide, okay, we're not going to be beat by player X, well, then Kyle Shanahan just exposes them with player Y. And he knows, he's always 2 steps ahead. Okay, you want to take George Kittle? It's going to be a Deebo Samuel game. You want to take Deebo Samuel? It's going to be a Brandon Ayuk game. He is always 1 or 2 steps ahead. And when you look at kind of how this 49ers team is constructed and how this defense is constructed based on what they did last week, I would put all my chips in on stopping Christian McCaffrey. Because I think as good as Deebo is, as good as Ayuk is, as good as George Kittle is, as good as Brock Purdy looked in that week 1 game, I think Christian McCaffrey is that one that if you get him the ball in space, they're just going to bleed you down the field all day long. Maybe not even in the running game, but just in the short passing game. So if you got to pick your poison on one, for me, I'm taking Christian McCaffrey and hoping my young secondary can really kind of hold their own against Deebo and Ayuk. And, Kittle didn't really have a statistically great game last week, but he is still George Kittle and obviously a factor. So yeah, I would key in on Christian McCaffrey and do everything possible to slow him down, which they were able to do 2 years ago when they play, or was it last year or 2 years ago when he was in Carolina still? That was last year. Yeah, last year. But it's a very different offense, very different coach, very different quarterback. So it's not going to be the same look they got. And then Christian McCaffrey the very next week played off a bye with the Niners and absolutely tore them to shreds with a passing touchdown and I believe a receiving touchdown. So for me, I think they got to shut down CMC. Easier said than done.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point, and it's just tough to stop. Superstars in this league are going to eat. Tyreek Hill's gonna get, he's going to gash you on a couple plays, and I just
take it.
Sports Center used to say you can't stop him; you can just hope to try to contain him, and that would go a long way. And I think, now if you transition to the other side of the ball and you think about the offense, this Rams offense and how they're going to attack the 49ers defense, how are they going are they going to have the same kind of success with Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell, or are they going to find another kind of avenue for moving the ball? I was looking a lot at the running statistics, and last season Seattle was a pretty bad defense against the run. They let up 150 yards per game last year, and then all of a sudden, maybe they've become a fantastic run defense. But we talked a lot about the running game, but it didn't have the teeth statistically anyway. They were able to get it done when they needed to. But what other what options do they have? Is it just going to be the same game plan? Just pepper Nacua and Atwell?
For me, and I feel like a broken record because I say this every time they play the Niners, but to me, you have to not just establish the run, but stick with it. I mean, there's going to be some tough sledding in this game where, I mean, we saw it last week, even against Seattle. I mean, I think Cam Akers averaged like 1.3 yards a carry or something like that. Like, it wasn't like he was blowing it out of the water with his 21 carries. But what I was so impressed with, and we talked about this on the live show, and this might be a Mike LaFleur thing kind of sticking in Sean McVay's ear, but they stuck with the run. It helps that they took the lead and then they had that lead. But I think in this game, even if they fall down early, they cannot abandon the run, because every time these games end up in like a blowout fashion for the Niners, is because they end up running the ball 14 times, and Stafford or Goff back in the day is chucking it 50 times a game. With that pass rush and with that just front seven in general, you're just going to get torn to shreds with that. And I love Matthew Stafford. He, 91 pass grade last week, or 91 overall grade last week, and looks reborn, and his arm looks great. So I think he has the ability to absolutely beat the Niners. But if you become one dimensional like that, especially early on, you're not winning this game. Like, there's just no chance. And so they have to establish the run. And by establish, again, I mean just sticking with it. I don't care if they're getting 2 yards a carry. Just keep running the ball. You're eventually going to open stuff up in the play action game. You're going to take the pressure off of Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell and Matthew Stafford, and put some of that weight on Kyren Williams and Cam Akers. So to me, the only way they win this game, Skinny, and we'll toss back to you, is if they run the ball 30 plus times. I think I said it on the live stream crossover last night, 25 times. I'm going back to 30 times. I think you got to run the ball 30 times. And last week in Seattle, they ran the ball 37 times. They passed the ball 38 times. They were extremely balanced. Technically 40 times they ran the ball, but I never count quarterback runs because Stafford's not a running quarterback. Those are just scrambles. So, but 37-38, I love that. Maybe call me old school, but they got to do that again. They got to run the ball 30 plus times, and that gives them a real shot to A, keep the ball out of that offense's hands, and B, just allows them to open things up for Stafford, Nacua, and Atwell in the passing game. So establish the run all day for me.
Yeah, I love that, because I think that one of the things that the 49ers have always done is own the clock. They'll bleed the clock. They'll keep it out of Stafford's hands. They'll keep McVay on the sidelines in terms of his fantastic schematic ability. And so I think that's probably what you equal and opposite being true, is that they have to do that to Shanahan. And, picking up those first downs. And for the Rams, I think that first downs is like Tyler Higbee's. That's where he is. That's his specialty. So I think you called it out last week, and I think even more so this week is, picking up a few first downs with the legs, and then Tyler Higbee. And I think the running back that they have to go with this week more so is Kyren Williams, because I think he's a bit more of a physical guy and a more of a threat catching passes too.
Yeah. Love what I'm seeing from Kyren Williams, and finally getting involved in the offense. 2 touchdowns last week. Is a fantasy darling all of a sudden. Everyone on the waiver wire trying to get him. So, all right, score prediction time. Skinny, we both win Seattle last week, and the Rams surprised us. And hey, we'll take an L there because our team wins. That's great. Who are you going with this week, and what's the score?
I think the over-under was 44.5.
Yeah, I can confirm it is 44.5. You are correct.
All right. I'm not sold on this team. I texted you last night. Maybe Seattle's tanking. Maybe they're just a really, really bad team, and nobody saw it really coming. Sometimes you gotta pick against the home team, because if they win, it's a good thing. But I'm gonna pick the 49ers to win this one, 34-30.
Okay, nice. A high-scoring game again, nice and close. I was on with Brittany Betts and Paula on the Talking Sporty a few nights ago, and we all picked the Rams and that. We're feeling real high still after the win. And I love this team. I love scrappiness. You know, I think back to that great Brooks speech in Miracle where he says the Russians might beat us 9 out of 10 times, but not this time. It's something like that. So I kind of felt that mantra with this team just because of the youth, the don't give an F mentality. Like a lot of these guys haven't been here. They don't know this rivalry. Like they're just going to go out there and ball. That being said, like if I really look at just mano-a-mano, it's really hard right now in this juncture to pick the Rams winning this game. I think they're going to battle their butts off and they're going to play really well. But at the end of the day, I think the Niners are just too much right now. I think they'll get their number again later in the season. But I'm going to take the Niners 31-21 in a hard-fought battle. Rams play well, but unfortunately just come up a little short, but they take a lot of positives out of this going into week 3. Anything less to add?
Yeah, I don't think so. You know, I think this is a learning season for everybody involved. We're going to learn a lot from this matchup. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be a great game. Show out, Rams fans. Let's have fun down at SoFi. I believe we'll be there for tailgate takeover in the pink lot early before the game. So everyone come say what up, say hi. You know, Skinny T, I might be there for sure. Brittany Betts and Paula will be there hanging out at all the tailgates. So hopefully see you all there. And let's just have fun. It's one of the best rivalries in all of sports. I don't think it gets quite enough credit as it deserves. But especially here in LA with so many Niners fans living amongst us. So it's like an everyday back and forth thing. So let's have fun. Go Rams. We would love to be wrong and see the Rams win, but either way, they're going to learn a lot. And I think we'll see a lot of positives coming out of this game. We'll be back right after the game, most likely for a recap on Sunday, live reaction. Plus we'll do some more Rams Skinny on Monday and Tuesdays. So for Skinny T, I'm Ryan Dyrud. Thanks all for hanging out with us. This is the Rams Skinny. Go Rams.